This story was sent to us by one of our viewers. It's a story about secrets, grief, and how one letter, hidden for years, changed everything after a loved one passed away. Grab a coffee, sit back, and get ready for an emotional journey. I found the letter the night after my father's funeral, and I wish I never had. No, that's a lie. I'm glad I found it. But the truth it revealed shattered everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, about the man who raised me for 32 years. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how a piece of paper, hidden in a coffee tin for decades, turned my entire world upside down. The house felt like a tomb that night, empty, cold. Even with the heat running, I couldn't shake the chill that had settled into my bones since Dad passed 3 days earlier. I was alone for the first time since the diagnosis 6 months ago. My brother Michael had flown back to Seattle immediately after the funeral. Typical. He'd swooped in for the obligatory goodbye, shed his crocodile tears, and disappeared again, leaving me to handle everything. The arrangements, the cleanup, the memories. The silence was deafening. No more oxygen machine humming in the background. No more coughing fits at 3 a.m. No more weak voice calling my name from the bedroom down the hall. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost myself. Each corner held fragments of our life together. The kitchen table where he'd helped me with homework. The living room where we'd watched countless Sunday football games. The small office where he'd balanced the family books every month, hunched over that old wooden desk. That's where I found it. I wasn't snooping. I was just trying to organize his papers for the lawyer. Insurance documents, medical bills, the usual paperwork that death leaves behind. But as I emptied the bottom drawer, my fingers caught on something taped underneath. A small key, brass, old, unfamiliar. I turned it over in my palm, wondering what it could possibly unlock. Dad wasn't secretive. He was methodical, organized, everything in its place. So why hide a key? I searched every drawer, every cabinet, every possible lock in the house. Nothing. Then I remembered the basement, Dad's workshop, his sanctuary where he'd spend hours tinkering with old radios and fixing neighbors' appliances. Down in that musty basement, surrounded by decades of collected tools and spare parts, I found it. A small metal box tucked behind his workbench. The key fit perfectly. Inside was an old coffee tin, Maxwell House, the same brand he'd drunk every morning for as long as I could remember. But this tin held something far more valuable than coffee grounds. Letters, dozens of them, some yellowed with age, others more recent, all addressed to the same person. My dearest Eleanor, my mother's name. My mother, who had died when I was 3 years old. My mother, who I barely remembered, except through the few photographs Dad kept on the mantle. I shouldn't have read them. They were private, intimate, but grief makes you do strange things, makes you desperate for connection with the people you've lost. The first letter was dated just 2 months ago. Dad's familiar handwriting, though shakier than usual. Eleanor, the doctors say I don't have long now. Sarah still doesn't know the truth. I've carried this secret for 29 years, and I'm not sure I have the courage to tell her before I go. My hands trembled as I read on. What truth? What secret? The answer came in the next line. She still believes Michael is her real brother. Growing up, I never questioned our family dynamic. Why would I? Michael was 8 years older, so we weren't particularly close as children. He went to college when I was 10, started his career in tech while I was still in high school. We lived parallel lives under the same roof for a brief time, then separate lives in different states. Dad always said we were different as night and day. Michael was brilliant, ambitious, always reaching for something bigger. I was practical, steady, content with small-town life. Different gifts, Dad would say. Same heart. I believed him. We shared the same brown eyes, after all. The same stubborn streak when it came to helping others, even when it cost us. Dad worked double shifts at the factory to put Michael through MIT. Never complained. Never made Michael feel guilty about the sacrifice. When I graduated high school, there wasn't money left for college, but Dad helped me get a job at the county clerk's office. Steady work, good benefits. Not everyone needs a fancy degree to make a difference, he'd tell me. I never felt second best. Dad had a way of making me feel valued, important. He taught me to change my own oil, balance a checkbook, stand up for myself. We had our rituals, Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon drives through the countryside. Evening walks around the block when the weather was nice. After Mom died, or at least, after the woman I thought was my mother died, it was just the three of us. Dad, Michael, and me. A small, tight unit held together by shared loss and quiet love. Michael visited twice a year, Christmas and Dad's birthday in July. Those visits were pleasant but distant. We'd catch up on surface-level things. His job, his girlfriend turned fiancé turned wife, my job at the clerk's office, my small circle of friends, my quiet life. Dad would light up during those visits. He'd cook Michael's favorite meals, ask detailed questions about his work in software development, beam with pride when Michael talked about his latest projects or promotions. I was happy for them both, proud of my successful big brother, grateful for my devoted father. But now, reading these letters, I realized I'd been living in a carefully constructed lie. Michael's mother called today. Dad had written in one letter. She wants to reconnect with him now that her husband is gone. I don't know what to tell her. He still doesn't know about Eleanor, about Sarah, about any of it. Michael's mother. Not our mother. His mother. I felt sick. The cancer came fast and cruel. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Dad had hidden the early symptoms well. The fatigue, the weight loss, the persistent cough he blamed on working in the dusty factory for 30 years. By the time he finally saw a doctor, it had spread everywhere. I took family leave from work to care for him. Michael offered to hire a nurse, to move Dad to a facility in Seattle where he could get better care. But Dad refused. He wanted to die at home, in the house where he'd raised us both. Those final months were a mixture of grace and agony. Grace in the quiet moments when we'd sit together watching old movies, his thin hand in mine. Agony in watching this strong, proud man fade away piece by piece. He apologized constantly, for being a burden, for not being able to fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen, for not teaching me more about managing money, for leaving me alone. "You're not leaving me alone," I'd tell him. "You gave me everything I need to take care of myself. You did good, Dad." He'd smile then, but his eyes would hold something I couldn't name, something that looked like regret or fear. The night he died, I was sleeping in the chair beside his bed. The hospice nurse had said it would be soon. His breathing had become more labored, more irregular. I woke to silence. Complete, absolute silence. He looked peaceful, finally free from pain. I held his hand until it grew cold, whispering all the things I should have said more often. "Thank you. I love you. You were enough. You were more than enough." Michael arrived the next morning. He cried. Real tears. Not the crocodile tears I'd accused him of later. We held each other in that quiet bedroom and grieved together for the man who had shaped us both. The funeral was small. Dad's co-workers from the factory, neighbors, the pastor from the Methodist church Dad attended sporadically, a few dozen people who had been touched by his quiet kindness over the years. Michael gave a beautiful eulogy about Dad's work ethic, his sacrifice, his devotion to family. I couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come. My grief felt too private, too deep for public display. After the burial, after the casseroles and condolences, after Michael's flight back to his real life, I was alone with my sorrow and a house full of memories. That's when the real pain started. Not the sharp, urgent pain of watching someone die. The slow, grinding pain of learning to live without them. I read every letter in that coffee tin. 29 years of correspondence with a dead woman. 29 years of Dad pouring his heart out to Eleanor, telling her about raising the daughter she'd never know. The story emerged slowly, letter by letter. Eleanor had been Dad's co-worker at the factory, a single mother struggling to raise a 3-year-old daughter, me, on her own. My biological father had abandoned us when I was still a baby. Eleanor worked double shifts to make ends meet, leaving me with various babysitters and daycare centers. Dad had been divorced for 2 years. His first wife, Michael's mother, had left him for another man and moved to California, taking 8-year-old Michael with her. The custody arrangement brought Michael back to Dad for summers and holidays, but it was clear that his primary life was elsewhere. Dad and Eleanor started as friends, coffee breaks at work, occasional help with childcare when Eleanor's regular babysitter fell through. Slowly, something deeper developed. "I never expected to love again," Dad wrote in one letter dated just a month after Eleanor's death. "But you changed everything. And Sarah, she changed everything again. When you asked me to adopt her, to raise her as my own, I said yes without hesitation. Not just because I loved you, because I loved her too. Eleanor had been sick for months before she died. Cancer, just like Dad. She made him promise to keep me, to raise me alongside Michael, to never let me feel like an outsider in my own family. Michael had been told that Dad had remarried, that his new stepmother had a daughter. He'd been jealous at first, resistant to sharing his father's attention, but children adapt. By the time Eleanor died, Michael had accepted our family arrangement. He called Eleanor Mom when he visited. He treated me like a real sister. After Eleanor's death, Dad made a choice. He told Michael that Eleanor was gone, but he never explained that she wasn't my biological mother. He let Michael assume that I was his half-sister, that Dad and Eleanor had been married long enough to have had me together. It was easier, cleaner, less complicated. I thought it would protect them both, Dad wrote in one of his final letters. Michael wouldn't have to process the complexity of blended families. Sarah would never have to feel like the outsider, the add-on. She would just be my daughter, same as him. But Michael wasn't the same as me. Michael was Dad's biological son, his flesh and blood, his legacy. I was just chosen. The adoption papers were in the tin too. Legal documents making Dad my official guardian, then later my adoptive father. But no record of a marriage to Eleanor. No evidence that she was ever truly part of our family in the way I'd always believed. The last letter, written just weeks before Dad's death, contained the detail that broke my heart. I'm leaving everything to Michael in my will. The house, the savings, the small investments. Not because I love Sarah less, but because I know he'll take care of her. He'll make sure she's okay. I raised him to be responsible, to look after family. I trust him to do right by his sister. His sister, not even his half-sister. Just the girl his father had chosen to love. I wondered if Dad had ever told Michael the truth. If my brother knew that we shared no blood, no biological connection. If he knew that his inheritance came with the unspoken obligation to care for someone who wasn't really family at all. I called Michael at 6 a.m, Seattle time. He answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. Sarah, what's wrong? Are you okay? For a moment, I couldn't speak. How do you ask someone if they know you're not really related? How do you shatter a lifetime of assumed connection? I found some letters, I said finally. From Dad, about Mom, about Eleanor. Silence on the other end. Michael, are you there? I'm here. His voice was different now, cautious. What kind of letters? You know, don't you? I whispered. You know we're not really brother and sister. A long pause. Then, Sarah, how long have you known? Since I was 16. His voice was barely audible. Mom, my biological mother, told me during one of her bitter moments. She was angry at Dad for something and she used it as a weapon. Said he'd replaced our family with strangers. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. 16? You've known for 16 years. Sarah, listen to me. Why didn't you tell me? Because Dad asked me not to. Michael's voice grew stronger, more urgent. He called me that night, after my mother spilled the secret. He was terrified that I'd treat you differently, that I'd leave and never come back. He made me promise to keep it to myself. So you've been lying to me my entire adult life. I've been protecting you, just like Dad was. From what? From the truth? From knowing where I really came from? From feeling like you didn't belong? Michael's voice broke. Sarah, you have to understand. You are my sister. Biology doesn't change that. You're the only real family I have left. I started crying then. Ugly, desperate sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep in my chest. He left everything to you, I managed to say. The house, the money, everything. Because he knew you were his real son. What are you talking about? The will reading, yesterday. He left me $5,000 and his toolbox. He left you everything else. Dead silence. Then, Sarah, I haven't been to any will reading. What? I haven't heard from any lawyer. Are you sure there was a reading? My mind raced. Mr. Henderson, Dad's lawyer. He called me yesterday morning. Said to come in at 2 o'clock for the reading of the will. Did he read it to you? Or did you just receive a copy? He read it. There were other people there. Mrs. Patterson from next door. The pastor from Dad's church. A few others. Sarah. Michael's voice was gentle but firm. That doesn't sound right. Will readings aren't usually group events like that. And Dad would have named both of us as beneficiaries if he had assets to distribute. A cold realization washed over me. I think you need to call Mr. Henderson back. Ask to see the original will. get copies of everything. But I already knew what I'd find, or wouldn't find. There had been no official will reading. Mr. Henderson had been confused when I'd shown up at his office, claiming to have received a call about Dad's will. The reading I'd attended had been at some other family's lawyer's office, a case of mistaken identity, confused addresses, crossed wires. Dad had died without a formal will, which meant everything would go through probate, which meant, as his only surviving children, Michael and I would split his assets equally. I wasn't the forgotten daughter after all. 3 months later, I was sitting in Dad's kitchen, now my kitchen, reading another letter. This one had been hidden in his bedroom, tucked inside the family Bible on his nightstand. A letter addressed to me, in his careful handwriting. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you've been brave enough to look for answers. I hope you've found the letters to Eleanor by now. I hope you understand why I kept her memory alive all these years. You were never a burden, never an obligation, never second best. The day Eleanor asked me to adopt you, I didn't say yes out of love for her. I said yes because, in the 6 months I'd known you, you had already become essential to my happiness. Your laugh, your stubborn insistence on helping with everything, your fierce protection of the stray cats in our neighborhood. You chose me too, sweet pea. You called me daddy before the papers were signed. You crawled into my lap during thunderstorms. You saved every Father's Day card you ever made me. Michael is your brother in every way that matters. He knows this. I made sure he knows this. The house is yours if you want it. The memories are yours regardless. Love isn't about blood. It's about choice. I chose you. You chose me. We chose each other. That's worth more than any inheritance. All my love always, Dad P.S. Check behind the water heater in the basement. I left you something special. Behind the water heater, I found one more metal box. This one contained the deed to the house, with my name already added as joint owner, dated 5 years earlier. A savings account passbook showing regular deposits over the past decade, all earmarked for Sarah's future, and a thick envelope of photographs I'd never seen before. Pictures of Eleanor and me, pictures of Dad and Eleanor together, pictures of our little family, Dad, Eleanor, Michael, and me, during the few short months when we were all together. In one photo, Eleanor is holding me on her lap while Dad and Michael work on a puzzle on the living room floor. We all look happy, complete, like we belong together. On the back of the photo, in Dad's handwriting, family isn't about who gave birth to whom. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses love over convenience every single day. That night, I called Michael. I found another letter, I told him. Good or bad? Good. Dad knew we'd figure everything out. He trusted us to take care of each other. Smart man. Michael? Yeah? Thank you. For keeping the secret. For letting me grow up feeling like I belonged. Sarah, you do belong. You always did. You always will. I know that now. We talked for 2 hours that night. About Dad. About Eleanor. About the strange and wonderful ways families form. About love that transcends biology. About the choice to show up for each other. Again and again. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. 6 months later, Michael moved back home. His tech company had gone remote during the pandemic, and he realized there was nothing keeping him in Seattle except habit. He bought the house next door, the one that came up for sale after Mrs. Patterson moved to assisted living. We have dinner together twice a week now. We've started new traditions while honoring the old ones. Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon drives, evening walks around the block when the weather's nice. Sometimes we talk about Dad, sometimes about Eleanor, sometimes about the brother and sister we might have been if we'd grown up together from the beginning. But mostly we talk about the brother and sister we are now, the family we've chosen to remain, despite distance and time and the complicated truth of how we came to be related. The hidden letter didn't destroy our family, it deepened it. It taught us that love isn't diminished by truth, that bonds aren't weakened by honesty, that the best families aren't always the ones we're born into. They're the ones we build through choice, commitment, and grace. Dad was right. Family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about staying. It's about choosing love over convenience every single day. And sometimes it's about letters hidden in coffee tins, waiting to teach us what we never knew we needed to learn. Some stories arrive too late. Others, just in time to heal a broken soul. If this story moved you in any way, consider subscribing to our channel. We share real, emotional stories every week, and yours might be the next one.